Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, still coming in hot from lovely Mexico. Storm's coming in tonight. We timed this epi perfectly. And folks, time for the intro. Super pumped, especially when the guest comes on for round 2. And we will definitely have this lad on for round 3. Today we have Anthony Georgiades back on the show today, co-founder of Pastel Network, a fully decentralized, developer-friendly L1 blockchain serving as the preeminent protocol standard for NFTs and Web3 tech. While performing his duties as president, Anthony is also GP at Innovating Capital, a technology fund focused on disruptive companies and digital assets that has incubated Pastel since day one. Anthony previously spent time on the investment team at First Round Cap and on the operations teams at various startups. He also studied finance, management, and comp sci at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton and engineering schools. Anthony, pumped to have you on for round 2, my friend. How you doing this lovely afternoon?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Pumped to have you back on. Let's jump right into it here. The market's just absolute bananas right now. All the big coins are sort of going up and down, sort of chopping around. Shit coins are absolutely going parabolic. We have this new wave, and I don't even know if this is true, but I don't know if you've seen these AI coins that are popping off where people think that AI created them and are managing the Twitter accounts and the Telegram chats. Like, what's your current what's your sentiment rather on the current market and how bananas this thing is?
It is absolutely crazy right now, as you said. I mean, what's interesting about this time in the market is there are a ton of factors driving price, speculation, allocation, etc. right now. In the backdrop, you obviously have a lot of uncertainty and back and forth with regards to monetary policy. Is it going to be a 25 bip cut, 50 bip cut? How many cuts are we going to see? What's going on with US debt? How's the election going to shape out? So you have obviously this confluence of factors in the background that's really driving a lot of the crypto narrative. And then in the meantime, you have a ton of excitement with respect to innovation around AI. A lot of people are excited around obviously what this could really mean for the future of Web3. You have the spatial web that's starting to come out as well and really kind of setting a resurgence of really what the metaverse might be. And so it's a very, what I would view as somewhat vulnerable time in crypto with regards to where we are in the crossroads of both monetary, global macro, as well as core innovation, adoption, and general technological use cases.
Yeah, well said there. You just brought up the spatial web. This is something that gets me going a little, and I honestly don't think we've discussed this once on the Crypto News Pod. Did you mind just sort of setting the stage for myself and the listeners, give a quick overview of the spatial web and how this could really sort of bring back the whole metaverse narrative? Because I still think it'd be a blast, but again, 2020, 2021, everyone was like, oh, the metaverse is going to be everything. It was sort of fugazi. It made a lot of sense at the time just because, again, we were all locked up in our rooms. We were degenerates gambling on crypto and NFTs, and the metaverse seemed really cool. Fast forward, COVID ends and we were getting outside, touching grass again. But could you sort of just give us a quick sort of high level explanation of what exactly the spatial web is?
Yeah, so I think it's first important to understand that a lot of people like to use the spatial web and Web3 interchangeably, but they're very, very distinct and different. Right. Obviously, we know what Web3 is. Web3 is, the future of digital economies, token-based economies that, for the most part, operate in decentralized ecosystems that are completely, permissionless. We are pushing for interoperability across Web3, etc. The spatial web is really the future of what I would view as kind of how you think about the metaverse overall, a 3D type computational environment that allows people, users, audiences to really interact with one another in really mixed reality type settings. And so the spatial web, obviously, there is overlap with the metaverse, and the metaverse really works in a strong way when you have obviously, the spatial web components there. So I guess really what does this mean? If you think about what the spatial web can do overall, think about anything from smart cities and urban planning, right? Augmented navigation, emergency response, infrastructure management. Think about retail and e-commerce, virtual try-ons. Shoppers can basically be trying on clothes at home, and it feels like they're effectively in a
store,
center, right? Buying clothes directly online, trying it on in your home, clicking a button, and you're buying it. So it's bridging the gap between basically both in real world assets and Web 2. And from my perspective, spatial web is really the next level of Web 2 overall. And where it overlaps with really Web 3 is in the essence of obviously metaverse, DAOs, etc. Obviously, we see those really tangible use cases in gaming and entertainment, social VR platforms, augmented reality games, enhanced customer experiences and things like that. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And again, this is a great time to sort of segue and throw that layup slash, I don't like layup, so call it an alley-oop. Throw that layup over to Pastel here. You guys have been in the whole sort of spatial web, AI, NFT space, not so much NFTs because NFTs were cool, but you guys were literally moving and grooving in AI before it was cool. Let's talk about sort of the convergence between AI and crypto here. A lot of people have a lot of cool ideas about how it's going to work together, but you and the team have actually been doing it way before. It really was cool. I'd love if you could tell us that story and how early you guys really got into the whole AI crypto game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think what's really important to understand, obviously, is first and foremost, there's people like to throw around a lot of these buzzwords, similar with kind of, spatial web and Web3 and all this stuff. Yeah. But how do they really kind of play hand in hand, and where does Pastel come on board here? So obviously, we know what Web3 is. AI itself, right, provides data-driven insights, automation, intelligence, etc. And together, you can leverage AI with Web3 to really accelerate the transformation of various sectors, whether that's DeFi, whether that's NFTs, whether that's EdTech, or a variety of new use cases that are trying to come on board. And so in general, AI really enhances Web3 by providing a lot of this deeper data analysis, this deeper automated decision making. Think about, obviously, first and foremost, enhanced user experience. Think about AI-driven chatbots and virtual assistants that could really improve the interaction or engagement with a DApp. People are trying to onboard to crypto. People are trying to onboard and use decentralized apps for the first time. Figuring out how to install MetaMask, how to get fiat to crypto to
Nightmare fuel.
App, right? Now you might have AI-driven chatbots that will allow you to basically go through that process in a seamless, interactive way without necessarily having to be worried about going on Reddit or talking to people in a setting where you might have some unscrupulous or nefarious actors that, draw you away. That's just one of the most clear-cut use cases right now. Driving adoption, getting people on board, enhancing user experience. Something that we're really excited about, obviously, is content moderation. The thing about decentralized networks is that they're supposed to be censorship resistant, right? They're supposed to be completely open. There's no middleman that comes in and basically says, hey, you can't say this or you can't say that, you take it off or this or that. That is really the kind of ethos or philosophy of crypto overall, completely censorship resistant. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily always practical when it comes to what everybody would agree as our, illicit materials, whether that's, certain types of content, which is, just relegated as illegal, whether that's certain violent types of, discussion or whatever it might be. So how do you get to the point where you have censorship resistance, but some form of moderation to prevent a platform from being basically seized or infringing on what are nationally or internationally known as just illegal and, non-tolerable activities? Bring in AI. You can have AI, you could train LLMs to basically moderate content on decentralized platforms. So before something actually gets put on the blockchain, before something is actually put on the ledger or deployed on a smart contract, you have artificial intelligence tools that don't have necessarily any bias. They're not necessarily trying to filter based off of their political opinion or political mind of view, but they're strictly trained off of, hey, if there is, underage content that should not be on this platform, we're not putting it on. If there's content about violence or terrorism, we're not putting it on. And you have basically a completely non-biased tool that can provide that moderation, still achieve censorship resistance, but do not allow for non-tolerable information. And that's something that's really what we're really excited about. And actually, Sense, one of our protocols, has been at the forefront of that for some time, preventing basically certain images that are NSFW from getting put on any sort of platform. The other thing too that is exciting to me is obviously in the world of automation, you obviously have smart contracts that have taken hold of the entire Web3 environment, from Solana to Ethereum to L2s to L0s, whatever it might be. Smart contracts are so critical to how you interact with most facets of Web3, ranging from deploying dApps to obviously the most nascent form of DeFi, etc. Certain aspects of smart contracts, potentially escrows, potentially obviously when you involve oracles for
Yeah.
pricing, things like that, might still require some form of centralized intervention or manual intervention. We're seeing obviously the ability for smart contracts to leverage AI to automate some of these complex processes that otherwise would have required manual intervention. Now, again, there might still be a quasi form of centralization here or intervention from the AI tool, but it is much, much less quote unquote centralized than having, a human or a team or a centralized entity that's involved in some of that decision making. So to answer the question in short, AI is really doing a variety of things. It's making the Web3 adoption much easier. It's making Web3 adoption much more onboardable. It's ensuring that we can have censorship resistance with that form of tolerable moderation. And
Yeah.
it's also providing for the automation of certain tasks to make accessing and running these applications far more decentralized.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I love how you touch sort of the micro, the macro, also sort of the retail and more institutional / back end builder side of things. As we do have a lot of retail listeners on the pod, you just brought up sort of crypto adoption. And I hate to say this out loud, but as of right now, at least in my own circle and my own network and friends of friends and peers of peers, nothing has onboarded more Web2 folks, more normies to Web3 than meme coins. Do you mess with this, or are you like, nah, this ain't it? This isn't the way to bring the people on board?
I don't mess with it. I don't mess with it personally. But this is what's interesting about meme coins. And it's not much different than a lot of other projects out there. To a lot of, and this is kind of the contrarian opinion, if you do not necessarily have a technological feel for what crypto is, and it's still to a lot of people,
It's tough.
it's very
Yeah.
binary, right?
Yeah.
Can't feel it, can't touch it. It's digital. There's no value, right?
It's fake.
Obviously,
It's fake. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So meme coins take that to the extreme, right? And if something, think about it like this, right? If something doesn't have underlying inherent value or fundamentals, then you cannot necessarily prescribe a value. And if you cannot prescribe a value, then the potential is unlimited in terms of what it could be, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that show Silicon Valley? I love this scene where basically they're talking about revenue and one of their investors comes in and says, revenue, no, don't go after revenue. Because the minute you get revenue, right, you start to earn profitability, you start to earn cash flows, you start to earn those fundamentals that companies can now describe and assign your underlying inherent valuation to, right? Before that, pre-revenue, the sky's the limit. The moon's the limit, Pluto's the limit, right? In terms of what you can be and what you can do. So obviously that's what's fueled a lot of the speculation in meme coins. But the contrarian view is that what I've seen is that most people who enter the crypto market, they view it that are buying meme coins, they might view everything as fluff. So everything's fake, nothing's real. L2s aren't real, whatever is not real. So they go buy the meme coins, they speculate, things happen, they make money, they probably lose money. But what happens is that the meme coins have been a way to effectively onboard them to the Web3 ecosystem. And I've seen several instances of meme coin projects that have done a very good job of then converting their user base and educating that user base of really skeptics into people who are now curious, saying, I bought this, maybe I made money, maybe I lost money, but there's actually much more here than I thought.
There's more to this, exactly.
And I came in thinking that this was, fluff and vaporware, but I'm now starting to actually realize, because I've transacted and I've actually done something here, that there is something deeper here. There is this kind of concept of DeFi and staking and LP pools and things like that. And so I've actually viewed meme coin from the perverse way of being a great customer acquisition strategy for the broader Web3 ecosystem, irrespective of any underlying meme coin project itself.
Yeah. Well said there. It's a great way to get people in. And just to sort of build on your point, I think not a lot, but there were definitely a couple dozen, maybe close to 100 NFT, not companies, but organizations, communities back in the day in the 2021, early 2022 fiasco that also I felt did a really good job of making it more than just, a digital JPEG that you gambled on. They were actually shipping IRL stuff, community events. Again, also, giving staking opportunities, lending opportunities. Of course, the whole Blur thing helped with that. But I think NFTs really did help as well. And I'd love to sort of segue this into the fate of NFTs overall, because you and the team at Pastel are obviously still doing work in the NFT space. And there really hasn't, I can't remember, heck, it's got to be since 2022. Like, I don't even think I can really name any really prominent new NFT communities, organizations, companies, whatever, insert buzzword you want to throw in there, that have really moved the needle in the space. Now you have companies that are working on the back end like you guys that are doing incredible work, but what's your take on sort of the current NFT market, the future NFT market, and the fate of NFTs as a whole?
Listen, obviously a lot to unpack there. It's been an interesting time. And if you go back, right, every single market has obviously these ebbs and flows of speculation and irrational exuberance. And NFTs obviously had the same thing occur with them. I think the issue with the NFT market has been the inability, and it was very similar to kind of this ICO boom that we saw before
2017. Yeah.
Right. And the biggest problem with the ICO market in general, and it actually kind of goes back to really, human nature overall. You had these projects with these grand visions and these grand dreams, and they went out and they were startups and they raised money, a tremendous amount of money, to go build and execute on this vision. The traditional venture world has this down pat. You have obviously your seed round, and then your Series A, your Series B. You have these different milestones and stepstones. It's not, if you look at some of the best companies, right? How much money did Tesla raise? Hundreds of millions of dollars before they went public. They didn't raise that all up front. They raised part of it. And they hit those milestones, and the management team was highly governed, quarterly reviews, right? Things like that. And they were very, very aligned to hit and execute on a stepwise function. Kept them disciplined, kept them prudent, kept them honest. In the case of ICOs, it would be like if we gave Elon Musk hundreds of millions of dollars on day one. This is your grand vision. Go do it. Just go do it. Here's all the money. And hey, by the way, there's no governance. There's no control. There's no authority to come in and, review you and make sure that you're doing what you say you're doing. You have full reign to go do it. Obviously, that set a huge misalignment of incentives. And it just generally goes back to human nature. There wasn't that really intangible pressure that was exerted on any individual founder, whether it was EOS or whether it was even, Polkadot or whatever it might be, to go and actually build this thing. We saw the same thing with NFTs, and it became really quick for that to happen. The cycle happened over again. And with NFTs, the problem is it was even more vague and more broad. We're going to build a community. We're going to build an ecosystem. We're going to do these events. And really a lot of what it was tailored around was like community engagement that doesn't really have any sort of core quantitative KPI tied to it, right? How do you measure the success of a community? You don't. So it became very easy for these projects to raise exuberant amounts of money. People would speculate on obviously ownership and what that ownership might mean. Go back to the meme coin example. If I buy this Bored Ape, it gets me access to this. But what the heck is that access to actually, right? What value is derived and what value is created from it? And so you obviously saw a lot of speculation and then a lot of skepticism to follow. Now, that being said, I think it's washed away a lot of what NFTs, became and what really they should have been. But one thing I want to just distinctly mention here is that what we've been talking about has been NFTs with a specific use case, profile pictures, membership as ownership to communities, things like that, digital collectibles. That has nothing to do and should not undermine NFT as a technological standard, which has actually since seen a tremendous amount of activity and usage. There's been massive growth in NFT adoption as a standard over the last couple of years, from DeFi to AI, tokenized trading sets, tokenizing trading models, real estate, WRAs. That's a huge, massive trend that's happening right now with a lot of projects out there. How do we actually create this idea of, securitized token offerings? And now we have a way we could potentially do RWAs with NFTs, right? And so I want to make that very clear distinction where NFTs as a whole, as a market, as a technological standard, continue to see progress and innovation, whereas the tip of the iceberg, which is everything that the media sees,
profile picture nonsense. Yeah. That's
has really, exactly.
Yeah, well said there. Do you think there's ever a day when those come back? Like for the people who are still, and I mean, heck, I'm still holding on to a couple as well, but like, is that ship just left port and never returning, or do you think those could pop off again?
Listen, I actually personally don't even think we've seen it yet, right? What we saw was a taste of what I actually think that the NFT as digital collectibles will be. There'll be a point in time in the future where you will have, obviously the markets will be smarter. There'll definitely be less speculation, but the trading volume, the overall activity and the value of that NFT market in terms of profile pictures and digital collectibles will be factors and multiples of what it was at its peak in 2022. We haven't even seen it yet. And that at that point in time, you won't be referring to it as NFTs. You won't be referring to it as anything but that.
Digital collectibles, yeah.
Right.
I think AI, Anthony, also has a huge part in this play where it's like as AI continues to advance and get smarter and more efficient and easier to use, people are going to be creating and forging shit like it's going out of style. Like heck, even some of the videos, I mean, even this morning, just, doing my every morning Twitter rip. I mean, I'm on Twitter all day long. Let's not lie here. But, this morning I'm on Twitter looking at some stuff, lurking you for the show, blah, blah, blah. Marquise Brownie, my apologies, I butchered his name, the tech reviewer, he was on Twitter bitching about how a lot of people are using his voice and even creating like fake avatars of him to review their products, give it a 5-star, 10 out of 10 review. And that's just like a great example, right? And obviously a little bit of a different one, but as people continue to use AI to forge and fake things, like you will need that certificate of authenticity. And it's pretty friggin' difficult to do without NFTs in the blockchain.
Exactly. It's crazy. I mean, to your point, right? There is this confluence of factors and, you have NFTs over here, you have spatial web over here, you have AI over here, and it's all coming together. And it all requires the technological advantages of different factors. It's the same reason why we've seen this massive spike in AI over the last couple of years. These models aren't that much more advanced than they were 5 or 10 years ago, right? When I was at First Round, one of the first things we looked at was AI-driven chatbots. This has been going on for years. What allowed it to accelerate now? Obviously, distributed cloud computing, semiconductors, access to certain hardware, right? Basically, the ability to deliver as fast as possible. And so, it's funny that really there's a variety of kind of external and related factors that allow things to hit the market and catch fire at a certain time. But it's not in isolation. It's the proverbial surroundings that enable it to happen.
Yeah, well said there. Anthony, you're on a roll here, mate, but we do need to take a quick break and give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. When we get back, we are going to take a deep dive into Pastel and also talk about Pastel's new AI product interface and, of course, how they are buzzing in the NFT space as well as the intersection of AI and Web3. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends and sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love the team at Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Anthony. Anthony, let's jump right into it. For the listeners who missed round numero uno of the pod, where you introduced, and obviously we did a massively deep dive into Pastel, tee it off for us, give us a quick little elevator pitch, and then we'll get into the fun stuff here.
So Pastel Network is, at its core, an L1 that conversely to most L1s out there that are focused on, general purpose applications, launching dApps, launching smart contracts, things like that, we're focused on delivering the infrastructure that's required to really build out those tools at scale. Some of that infrastructure includes decentralized permanent storage. I have an NFT. I gotta store the file for that somewhere. If it's on Ethereum, right? I have the token that's on Ethereum. Got the file itself. That cannot live on Ethereum. That needs to live somewhere else. It can live on Pastel. I have basically a special trading bot or application that I want to run on DEXs. Where does that actual trading bot get hosted, right? Where does that data that basically leverages historical order book data or ticket data, whatever it might be, where does that live? Lives on Pastel, right? In terms of some of the AI tools that we're building out, Pastel is really at the forefront of allowing, we recently launched our inference protocol, and inference really integrates models from the top AI providers, ranging from OpenAI to Mithril to Grok to Anthropic. We've also launched our own, what we call Swiss Army Llama, which offers versatile AI tools capable of handling a wide range of tasks from text generation to data analysis. What the heck can people do with this stuff? Why does it matter? Basically, what we do at the end of the day is we power this infrastructure, AI tools, data storage, data security, whatever it might be. And we allow any sort of ecosystem, whether you're an existing L1, whether you're a project living on L1, or whether you're an L2, to access Pastel as almost an interchain of sorts and basically work hand in hand with your project. The same way you might leverage Amazon Web Services, an S3 bucket or an EC2 instance or things like that. That's what Pastel provides. And we do so via a couple ways. One is through basically what we view as kind of centralized type bridges via open Web3 APIs. Get users up and running immediately. Basically, your ecosystem's here, Pastel is here. How do they talk? We give them access immediately through some sort of API where they can send data. And again, it's just this part that's quasi-centralized, but everything living over here is completely decentralized on the Pastel network. Then what happens is over time, they become reliant on the Pastel network. They realize that there is fundamental utility and honestly intrinsic data integrity in what we do. So then they actually look and solve for this and their more native approach. Maybe they become part of the validator set. Luxo is a great example of a native L1 who right now has basically 30 dApps on their ecosystem. Each of them has an API key to the Pastel network where they can send data, they can run their AI models, etc. on Pastel. But what Luxo is exploring over the long term is running their own validators that are almost like bridge nodes. They run the Luxo network, they run the Pastel network. They understand the state of both chains at any point in time. Any dApp on Luxo is able to communicate with both networks synchronously in a totally native decentralized fashion.
Very cool. Could you, a tough one here, just perhaps give a Web 2 analogy or example, and again, I'm going to butcher this, but I'm a G Suite maxi. Obviously I know it's not as secure as it should be, but I love G Suite, email, docs, sheets, the whole 9 yards, storage, you name it. I hate Outlook. I think Outlook is the worst. My apologies. I'm sure half the people listening are using Outlook. Outlook's no bueno, not for me. Would that be the equivalent where once a company or an organization gets into the G Suite, the Google ecosystem, they don't usually move, similar to you guys, how once they start using Pastel, they have the decentralized cloud storage, they have access to all the really good APIs. If they want to take a deeper dive and jump more into bed with you guys, they can set up a validator. Could you sort of give a more of a Web 2 analogy just to cross these bridges and make this a little easier? Because and a little thing I might add, I always find it tough for the non-Web 3 folks when they see a company like you guys, because you do so much. It's not just an L2 or an L3 that's really good at one thing. You guys are really good at a whole lot of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, the best way to think about it is like this. If you are a normal user and you're on your phone, take your iPhone, right? And you want to take a photo and then you want to send that photo to a friend, right? You're leveraging a bunch of different types of computing and technology with one simple transaction, or I guess
Yeah.
2, taking the photo and sending the photo, then you would know, right? Obviously, you're leveraging the processing capability of the phone itself, away from obviously the advancements of the camera. Taking that photo is then being sent to some sort of cloud server to being stored there. Then you're basically sending that file to someone. So they go back, retrieve that photo from the cloud, send it to their friend using some sort of inner protocol that allows for transmission, right, from phone to phone. And so effectively, this is how applications work in a very centralized setting, right?
Right.
Photos stored on Amazon's cloud. They're leveraging protocols that Apple's written, whatever it might be. In a decentralized world, the problem is this. In decentralized environments, every single part of the operational chain must be decentralized for the whole thing to be decentralized. There's one breaking point in the layer of transactions. The whole thing is suspect to centralization.
Yeah.
The case of NFTs, right? I bring this example up because I think it's the simplest to really envision.
I know what you're going to say. I love this. Continue. I know exactly what you're going to say. I love it.
In the case of NFTs, it was very, very commonplace. What would happen is you create a token on the Ethereum network, NFT token. It says, Bored Ape 1, 2, 3, description, blah, 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 right? The token lives on Ethereum, decentralized network, decentralized token. But Ethereum cannot store significant amounts of data, a la a photo, let alone a video or a song or a game, right? That type of data cannot be stored on the Ethereum chain.
Enter pinata.
Exactly, right? And so that file needs to be stored somewhere else. And the token will simply reference whatever link that is to the file. If you put that file on Amazon, if you put that file on Google, if you put that file locally on your computer, then you've just created a centralized layer of connection here, right? If I buy a token that you created, but from a photo you made that lives on your computer, that's on a Amazon server that you pay the bill for, then now all of a sudden we're completely reliant on you to pay that bill, do that, etc. And there is no central intermediary who can come in and kind of make sure that you do what you say you're supposed to do. So what Pastel does is it identifies problems in infrastructure, gaps in the market of Web3, where there are problems pertaining to, here is the vision of a Web3 application, but here are the shortfalls in infrastructure available in a decentralized setting. Let's create those infrastructure tools. Data storage is one of them. And obviously that's why we work with a lot of projects, still in the NFT space, who store all of their data on the Pastel network. And so instead of that Ethereum token referencing a link on your computer, it references a hash of that file permanently stored on Pastel.
Love that. Yeah. I love that shit. Look, dude, we're getting a little tight for time here. A couple more questions and we will wrap up, my friend. You guys are shipping stuff at a lightning pace here. What's coming out? Mind you, we're airing a week before this goes live, but anything coming out, over the next couple of weeks, months, years, too far down the road, but anything for the listeners to look forward to? Get any breaking news on the Crypto News Pod here?
The Inference client, which is available on the wallet today, but will soon be available on Pastel Portal. So Pastel Portal, if you go to portal.pastel.network, basically it's a web application where you can create a wallet and do everything on Pastel that you want to as a user. Create a wallet, load up some tokens, store files on the Pastel network, run files through Sense, and in a couple weeks here, if not sooner, by the time maybe this is even released, the Inference client will be available to use. The Inference client is a completely decentralized AI chatbot, and it leverages basically, you go in there, say, hey, I want to use OpenAI, I want to use Anthropic, I want to use Mithril, I want to use Grok, or I just want to use the versatile tool of anything, and you give me the best response, right? That entire chatbot is hosted on a decentralized network of supernodes, right? So you can, for the first time, leverage an AI chatbot, completely decentralized setting, interact across a variety of models at the same exact time, interact with Swiss Army Llama and get the best output that you might want, literally in a completely decentralized setting, and integrate this across dApps, right? We talked about why dApps might want chatbots. Well, now they have decentralized chatbots that you can use, thanks to Pastel. You can integrate those easily. And that's something that we're super excited about. That's
and
the
this,
tip.
Sorry, this could be used obviously internally, externally, like internally to train teams, FAQs, blah, blah, blah. Externally, if someone wants to come in, and you started off the show like this, and I absolutely love this. I want to set up a Pastel wallet, but I don't know how. What do I do? Boom. AI gives you the game plan, you're off to the races. Or exactly. You work for company X, and company X wants to upload all their internal docs into one of these chatbots, so then they can have a nice little widget on the bottom of their website, all decentralized. Am I on the right page here?
Exactly.
That's exactly. Elite. I love that.
Exactly. This is the tip of the iceberg as it pertains to AI, with what Pastel's doing. And I know we got to jump in a minute, but just a couple things to kind of be excited about. This is all powered by inference, and inference basically runs on our supernodes. These supernodes are running super high computational intensive, instances. What's coming next are things like an AI marketplace. Basically, imagine researchers can share and monetize their AI models, right? You can collaborate, you can innovate, you can reward researchers for contributing to a model, right? You can tokenize training data, things like that, right? You can self-host LLMs in a totally decentralized setting. We're talking with Render right now. How do we tokenize training data and models? How do we basically provide a level of provenance on what the training data set might look like and how it should be tokenized? There's so much that can happen, and there's so much that we're working on. It sounds abstract and it sounds vague. Part of it is because there's so many different avenues and ways, paths we can go down. And part of our exercise has been working with really early adopters and partners such as Luxo, such as Solana, such as Polygon. We just joined Polygon's solution provider network. What do you guys want? What do you want to see out of this, and what is going to drive this forward? Because we've built the infrastructure now. How do we build the tools to power your ecosystem moving forward?
Well said. Anthony, what an episode, man. Every time we talk, you always get me fired up, and you always give me a bunch of homework to do, which I love you and hate you for. But great episode. Really appreciate you coming on, my man. Before you let us go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you, of course, and Pastel Network online and on socials?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can definitely follow me on Twitter. That's PAnthonyLG, at PAnthonyLG. And then for Pastel, certainly obviously go to pastel.network, our website. And, from there, I certainly recommend that you join our Discord and you follow us on Twitter so you can be obviously engaged in the conversation and discussion with the community, as well as up to date on all the latest and greatest that we're coming out with.
Love it. Thanks again for coming on, my man. And always a great time with you. Can't wait to have you on for round 3.
Sounds great.
Folks, what an episode with Anthony Georgiades, co-founder of Pastel Network. We touch a little bit of everything this episode: the intersection of AI and Web3, the fate of NFTs, current crypto markets, more AI super cool stuff, the spatial web, how AI will drive crypto adoption. What an epi. Huge shout out to Anthony and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking to the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. Eustace, you are the man as always. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.